Hello everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the French Football Show. We've got a special episode today. We are in the heart of Paris for our first in-person record. We're in the second arrondissement, just up the road from the Place de l'Opéra. I'm with Tom Williams, I'm with Andy Scott. We've got lots to get stuck into. So here we go, episode 38 of the French Football Show. So joining me, Matt Spiro, today, I've got Andy Scott, who we've come to this area because it's your quartier. This is where you work, nice part of Paris.
It's where I work when I'm not in an underground cabin with you, Matt, which was the case last night. But yeah, this is where I spend my weekdays. So welcome along.
Yeah, Andy and I commentated the Goals show, the multiplex. We commentated 8 games simultaneously, so we are a little bit tired. It was an exciting night. Tom Williams had an exciting weekend as well. A lot of gripping Premier League action and plenty of Ligue 1 as well to keep you busy.
Not quite as much Ligue 1 as I would have liked, though, unfortunately, because I couldn't find the... So we're just going to pause here briefly while Matt... Dessert.
Merci, monsieur. Look at that.
What'd you go for?
I've gone for the pavlova, which is the dessert of the day. It's not very French.
Very Russian.
It looks amazing.
It does look amazing. Some of you 5 a day as well, so, you know...
Absolutely. Strawberries and all sorts.
Couldn't find the multiplex on the Ligue 1 Plus app, so I sent a strongly worded tweet to the Ligue 1 Plus X account, and I await their response. So I had no choice but to...
Maybe write a lettre recommandée
Maybe I will.
Avis de réception.
Yeah.
And then perhaps you'll get a reply before next season.
Yeah.
It's almost the end of the season, guys. There is still one match day. There is also the matter of Lens against Paris Saint-Germain to play on Wednesday. We'll talk about what's at stake in part 2. But we're going to have a bit of fun in part 1. We're going to talk about our favourite players, our player of the season so far, our espoir, our best young player this season, best coach, and we're going to try to pick a best 11. It is time for this week's Le Dossier.
I think we should say that just along the road from where we are now, about 100 metres away is where the Player of the Season award ceremony is taking place tonight. So we are very much in the right area to be talking about this right now. All the big stars are going to be arriving here in a few hours' time. So we're very much in the right zone.
There we go. We go. And there are various nominees in the best player category. Let me check who we've got. This is from the UNFP, the Players Union. They've put up Ousmane Dembélé, Nuno Mendes, Vitinha, Florian Thauvin, Mason Greenwood, and I think that's all. I added Esteban Lepaul, but Tom and Andy, for the Best Player Award, we can open out, more beyond that. And certainly when you look at it, I've noticed that Ousmane Dembélé has played more in the Champions League than in Ligue 1, and this is a Ligue 1 award.
Yeah.
So, if there's a Lens player, a Lille player who's tickled your fancy and you want to include, then you're very welcome. I'm going to go first, if that's all right. I'm hogging
Sure.
a little bit, but
Sure.
I'm a massive Vitinha fan, and I feel that he's been not carrying PSG, but he's been the one player who's been pretty much ever present. And he's just such a wonderful midfielder. I think his form has dipped a little bit, which is inevitable in the last month or two, but he is still the man for me. So I think he would get my vote. Tom, who are you looking at?
Yeah, it's tricky with a lot of the PSG players because some of them just haven't played a huge amount of Ligue 1 football. Ousmane Dembélé is a prime example. He's made 9 or 10 starts, I think, in Ligue 1 all season, and yet is up for the Best Player award and probably the favourite to win it. And I suspect he probably will win it.
If I could just intervene, Tom, I looked at this. Ousmane Dembélé, you're right, 9 starts in Ligue 1 this season. In terms of the number of minutes played by PSG players in Ligue 1, he's number 18. So he's hardly played in the league. And I think what Matt says is completely legitimate. It's a Ligue 1 award. So can you really give it to Dembélé?
But I think you can, because he has been decisive in Ligue 1 in a way that I'm not sure any of his teammates have. You think even just this year, 2026, the brace against Lille, the brace against Marseille, the brace against Toulouse, PSG don't get the results they get in those games without Dembélé scoring those goals. In And on each occasion, one of the goals was an absolute screamer. And one of the goals was, a normal goal. Yeah. So we have seen the best of Dembélé. I think the fear that a lot of us had at the beginning of the season, particularly with all the injury problems that he encountered over the first half of the season, we worried that last season might prove to be a one-off, that was as good as it was going to get. This one incredible season propels PSG to glory on multiple fronts. He wins the Ballon d'Or, and then he almost reverts back to the Dembélé of old. Injury problems, inconsistency. But what we've seen since the turn of the year is a continuity from what we saw last season. So although he hasn't started that much in Ligue 1 and hasn't featured all that much in Ligue 1, he's still been decisive in Ligue 1 games. I think he is still, pound for pound, the best player in the league. So with caveats, he would get my vote.
It's also, Ballon d'Or, including the Ballon d'Or in the list, isn't it? It feels a bit
sort of.
I
think
slightly, but I mean, it's clearly a slightly political choice of players.
It's
Edon Grover made the list last season on the back of some YouTube highlights. So, the UNFP is not in virgin territory here.
Yeah, you want to have your most sellable face up there, when you're handing out the big award. I totally get that. He is the reigning Ballon d'Or. He's done some big things, but I would say that if you're going to give it to a PSG player, and there's obviously plenty of reason to do that, I think it would have to be, for me, either Vitinha, and if not, Warren Zaïre-Emery, because I think that he has been absolutely crucial for PSG this season in terms of keeping everything together when so many of the other guys have not been playing. He has been there week in, week out, game after game after game. There was a run of 41 matches in all competitions between September and April. He started every single one of them.
I get that.
And he was playing.
He's not going to get it. He's in the. He's not.
Well, why don't we make him our young player of the season?
Well, because
and then that ticks that box.
I did think about this, and I thought, I know he's not going to get it, but for me, I think there's a very strong case to give it to him. Because, he wears the captain's armband sometimes. He has been probably the most improved player in the league, actually, because although he was brilliant 2-3 years ago, he wasn't very good last season.
Well, he struggled a bit in the early weeks of this season. And I remember you saying, Andy, what is actually special about this player? Because actually he runs, he's quite strong and powerful, but if he loses a bit of that physicality, then he's not special. But I think he's shown, he's shoved those words down your throat.
Completely. And as a lot of people now saying, a lot of people, you read it in quite a lot of places now, people suggesting that the starting right back for France at the World Cup should be Warren Zaïre-Emery. And I think there's a case for that, because Jules Koundé, who probably is the favourite for that role, has not had a brilliant season, has had 1 or 2 fitness problems. So he is a contender to be the starting right back for France at the World Cup. And he is also, a fairly complete midfielder who started adding the odd goal to his game that maybe wasn't there before. So I would say that I know he's not going to get it, but I would give it to him, and I would make Désiré Doué the young player of the year. That's what I would do.
For me, Désiré Doué shouldn't be in that category, even if he is still very young. He was the golden boy last year, Champions League hero. But
he's been extremely inconsistent this season.
Yeah.
But he is. But in this,
was it Nantes the other where he scored that absolute screamer a couple of weekends ago?
But in the same way that you're saying that Dembélé has popped up with a lot of crucial goals, which is true. Actually, Désiré Doué has also scored a decent number of very important goals in the league. He's only got 7 or 8 in the league, but for example, he scored the goal last night, which will ultimately has delivered them the league title. He has popped up in key moments. So that's, there is a case. He's 20 and he can fit into the young player category, but he's not been consistent enough to be the best player in the league. That's just the case I would make.
Okay, let's nail the best player, because we've only talked about PSG, and Lens are close, aren't they? And then Lens can win the Coupe de France. I know this is a Ligue 1 category, but what a season they've had. I guess Florian Thauvin is the sort of standout candidate. Goals, assists, and the way that he's been such an example. Andy, who's your candidate?
Well, actually, we should just say that we picked up on this before we started recording, that they played a song, didn't they, in this cafe that we're sitting in right now, which is a song I'd never heard in a cafe in this context before, but Les Corons. Who's the name of the artist? Is it Pierre Bachelet?
Yeah, Bachelet, maybe.
Yeah, very famous song apparently in the 80s, and it's now a Lens anthem, which they sing at half-time in their games, which is brilliant. Slightly different context here today, but all the same. That was like a sign. I would say
a sign of the extent to which Lens mania is sweeping the country. They're playing Les Corons in random cafes in the middle of Paris.
Exactly. But I would say, I know Thauvin, of course, but also Mamadou Sangare has been fantastic. He's been a revelation coming into Lens this season and has been, proven himself to be a player who Lens will probably sell for a huge amount of money at some point.
So you'd have him above Toba?
I mean, you can make a case.
You can make a case.
5 or 6 Lens players. And I think this also speaks to the fact that, contrary to PSG, Lens do have a settled starting 11. And if everyone's fit, which sadly for Lens has not always been the case, particularly in recent weeks, particularly in defence, you know who's going to start. Whereas with PSG, it's not that you don't know what their first choice starting 11 is, but they've, rotated so much because of all their other engagements. But yeah, you can make a case for Sangaré, for Adrien Thomasson, who is, still the leading assist provider, Malang Sarr, Mathieu Udol, Thauvin. Odsonne Edouard, I don't think he's quite in that category, but he's had an incredible season as well.
I do for 6 months.
Until he got injured.
But then he got injured. We're not any nearer to naming a player of the season here, because if we look at anyone outside, I would say that Corentin Tolisso is a shout. For Lyon.
Unlucky not to make the shortlist.
Absolutely, inspirational. You've got Le Paul at Rennes, who's the top scorer in the league, and I had somebody else in mind.
Panicelli,
forgotten.
Joaquin Panicelli.
Panicelli's a good shout. Yeah, did his ACL a month ago, but an absolute revelation.
And there is another Argentinian at Strasbourg, Valentin Barco, who's also been. I mean, the thing is, now you would say we're not going to give it to a Strasbourg player because things have kind of collapsed for them. But there was a time there where they were actually contenders potentially for a top 4 finish. They were on this run in all the cups, and Panicelli was banging in the goals. Barco was dominating games against big teams. You could have said him, but I think it probably has to be PSG or a Lens player,
PSG player,
or a Lens player. I think legitimately it's got to be one of those two, because I think Esteban Le Paul has also has been incredible. The goals he's scoring, different types of goals, but all kind of classic strikers' goals.
He's fantastic,
and ultimately Rennes could yet make the Champions League. He'll probably finish top 5, and he's hugely responsible for that. So
one word then, Tom, player of the season, Ligue 1.
Dembélé.
Really? Dembélé? Andy?
If I'm going to give it to a player who is legitimately going to win it, I would say Vitinha. Because I said Zaire Emery, but yeah, Vitinha.
Vitinha as well. So
Vitinha wins. Yeah,
he gets the FFS vote.
I can live with Vitinha.
And okay, we'll go for Vitinha. So in terms of the best espoir, the best hope, young player of the season, the UNFP nominated Desiree Doué, João Neves, Zaire Emery, Ayoub Bouhaddi, Valentin Barco, and I added Afonso Moreira, who really, really enjoyed watching. So I don't know, are there any others that we've missed, first of all, before we debate those? I mean, a lot of good young players in Ligue 1. Bouhaddi, they've all been around for a while, because Bouhaddi, what's his second or third season?
Third season. Yeah.
And Zaire Emery as well. It's his 4th, isn't it? 4th season playing in the PSG first team.
Certainly 3rd full season.
But Moreira, I'd say, is more like in the revelation category. He was bought for 2 million. He's come from nowhere. €2 million.
It's the kind of transfer fee that people stopped paying in 1997. I mean, his story is incredible, and he's now one of the best players in the league. He's worth many multiples of that.
His story is incredible because he was brought in when Malik Fofana, who probably would have been in different circumstances a contender for Young Player of the Year had he been fit and been playing all the time. He gets injured, and Lyon think they have nobody, and this guy just kind of happens to be there. We have to play him. Nobody in any expectations, and he's gone on to be defenders can't defend against him. We saw last night the Toulouse player Aaron Dunham being sent off because he couldn't handle him, and that's been quite common. So I'd agree, he's been a revelation, but from that to be the best young player in the league, I think is a bit of a stretch.
Valentin Barco, I reckon for me, it's between Barco and Zaire Emery.
I think that Zaire Emery deserves to win that. What I would say about Barco is I was in Strasbourg on Thursday for the game against Rayo Vallecano, and I thought it was really interesting to watch the Rayo midfielders just man-marking him out of the game. They were so aware of and I know that he's not fit at the moment. That's what Gary O'Neill said afterwards, but they were like, we need to stop this guy. They were literally passing on each time. If he moved over there, you've got to take him. They were so disciplined in stopping him play, and that always gives you an idea of the respect they have for this player. That you have to keep an eye on him. You have to stop him from playing, because if you do that, you stop Strasbourg from playing. He's been incredible. He's been so impressive. The way in which he defends, the way in which he annoys opponents, the way in which he can dominate matches in midfield. I have a soft spot for him, so I would maybe suggest that I would give it to Barco, but I don't think he'll win it.
Any Lens youngsters before we maybe give it to another Parisian?
Trying to think which of the Lens players are young enough to qualify for. I mean, guys like Ganiou, for example, who's come in and been brilliant.
Yeah,
the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Robert Risser is young enough, I would say, to win the best young player in the league. But I don't.
And he might have been on course a couple of months ago, but poor guy. His dip in form started when the France goalkeeping coach turned up to watch him play, and he dropped an absolute clanger. And it's interesting. I think it shows you, the difference between being a young and up and coming goalkeeper with not much to lose to suddenly being in a title chasing team with the France coach watching you. And, he's a young goalkeeper. I think that's, goalkeepers need time as well to grow. And I think he will grow, but his mistakes in the last few weeks have cost him, I think, in terms of that prize. So, and Ganiou as well, brilliant sort of emerging player, but again, he's been a bit raw. He's made some mistakes.
Yeah.
Any other player? Any names to advance, or are we going to go for the vote?
I say put to a vote.
I think we're all going to go for. Well, I don't know. I'm hesitating with Barco as well. I'm going to go Zaire Emery.
Yeah, I think Zaire Emery deserves to win it.
Yeah, thirded, unanimous.
We're so boring. We're going for PSG players, but yeah.
Sure, that will change.
It could change in the coaching category, although Luis Enrique's had a reasonably good year so far.
He's a decent coach.
He's a decent coach. The coaches nominated Luis Enrique, Pierre Sage, Paulo Fonseca, Bruno Genesio, and Olivier Pantaloni, who I think is definitely deserving of that nomination. I noticed there were Lorient players. Abagel talking last night said it's a scandal that Lorient have failed to reach an agreement for Pantaloni to stay on. Not totally clear, or I'm not totally aware of what happened behind the scenes, but it's a great shame he's leaving Lorient, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. I mean, you look at what he's done. I think everyone expected Lorient to be scrapping to avoid relegation, and they've been comfortably ensconced in the top half of the table pretty much all season. They play some fantastic football. That great 3-4-2-1 system, the flying wing backs on both sides, Pablo Pagis and Bamba Dieng banging the goals in, incredible home record. And, when you look at the minimal, means that they've had to work with in recent transfer windows, it's not far off a miracle what they've managed to do. So it's hard to see what more Pantaloni could have achieved.
The only thing I would say about that is that it just depends if the club have somebody else in mind. If they think we're going to get this guy to make us better. If it's just a case of he's not a big enough name or something, but we don't know who we're going to go for, then maybe it's a bit short-sighted. But if they really know what they're doing...
But it didn't seem to be...
It seems to be more from his side.
What was going...
Well, he felt he didn't have the confidence of the club, I think.
Thought it was with the American investors as well, and the direction that the club are going in. And
well, that's the thing. It seems to me there's a clash there, because you've got Bill Foley, who's the American businessman who owns Bournemouth, who owns the Vegas Golden Knights in the NHL. And maybe Olivier Pantaloni, with the greatest respect, is not a sexy enough name for the owner. Maybe that's what it comes down to, which is not fair on Olivier Pantaloni, but this is not a guy who knows much about French football, right? Bill Foley, let's be honest.
In sexiness terms, as a name,
it's not a bad name.
Pantaloni. I mean, that's...
yeah. Pantalon means trousers, so like trousers.
Quite a sexual garment, man. I mean,
Olivier Trousery.
Depending what kind of trousers you wear.
Listen, there are some good candidates here, because I think Paulo Fonseca...
Up until last night, you could have made an even stronger case for him. And unfortunately, you suspect Lyon probably aren't going to get Champions League football. The fact that they have got as close as they have, and they might still yet do it. And they still finish fourth and end up in the Champions League. I mean, there's definitely a case we made for Paulo Fonseca. I'd be inclined to give it to Pierre Sage.
Yeah, me too.
I think we're going to be unanimous, yeah.
And yet, Luis Enrique is proving once again that he is not just one of the outstanding coaches of his generation, but potentially, a generational coach in terms of his impact on football. But I guess you see that more as a reflection of what PSG have achieved in the Champions League.
Yeah, I also think that at the beginning of the season, if somebody said PSG are going to win the league and get to the Champions League final, you would have said, yeah. But if somebody had said Lens are going to be there on the penultimate match day of the season, still in with a chance, technically of catching PSG and be in the French Cup final, you would have said, I did not see that coming.
I think if we're looking purely at Ligue 1, for Pierre Sarge to have basically got his Lens side level pegging with PSG throughout is phenomenal. Like, they've got, 10 or 20% of the budget. It feels like we might be looking in the years to come. I remember, I don't know, it was 2013 or something like that when Carlo Ancelotti took PSG to the title, and I think Christophe Galtier was at Saint-Etienne and Galtier won it. And people were like mocking afterwards, saying, what a disgrace. Clearly Ancelotti is unbelievable. And maybe in a few years we'll say the same about this. But I think and I hope Pierre Sarge is going to have a big, bright future, as Galtier did, to be fair. And I think we're unanimous on this. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pierre Sarge, coach of the year. So our best player of the season is Vitinha, as voted 2-1. Best young player has gone to Warren Zaïre-Emery, and the best coach to Pierre Sarge. We're all in agreement.
Broadly, yeah. To live with that, yeah.
Très bien. The halftime whistle is about to blow inside the Corner Cafe. And it is time for a little halftime break, and I want to take advantage of this to talk about an incredible story that I witnessed live on Friday night. I was commentating Lens against Nantes. It was a gripping game, a little bit like that West Ham-Arsenal game on Sunday. Maybe the stakes not quite as high, but Lens still in with a shout.
Quality of football at Lens, that's for sure.
Yeah, there was some good football. And Nantes, to be fair, they didn't play badly. And they had some chances. And unfortunately for them, they've left their fight too late. But anyway, it was 0-0, 76, 77 minutes gone. Pierre Sarge throws on a couple of young players. Bermont, one of them, and another called Mesloub, who thankfully I'd noticed on the team sheet just before starting my commentary. And, you check, all the substitutes and you've got the information you need. And I saw the name Mesloub and thought, haven't heard of him, but maybe he's related to Walid Mesloub, who I used to commentate when he was playing for Lorient and for Lens. Turns out, yes, he is the son. He wasn't meant to feature in this game. Lens had a lot of injuries. Thauvin Saint-Maximin couldn't be involved. So Pierre Sarge brought him in at the last minute. 16 years of age. I think he's about 16 and a half. He's a name that is being spoken about quite a lot in Lens circles as an exciting prospect.
He's so young that the half gets included. At what point do we stop calling yourself like something and a half? Right?
Well, I haven't noted the number of days. I think it was 170 or something. But anyway, he comes on. And, I'm sort of in my notes jotting down who's playing where, who's going where, and I just sort of look up and the ball's sort of broken in the box. And there is Mesloub. It's 5 seconds from the moment that Udol takes the throw in. The ball breaks to Mesloub and he scores. Literally the first thing he does as a professional footballer. Stade Felix Bollard going absolutely berserk. Just a massive kind of relief and joy in the stadium. Lens have won almost every game. I think they've won 14 games at home and lost 2. And that win pulls them back to within 3 points of Paris Saint-Germain. I think more importantly, if we're being realistic, it seals their place in the Champions League. They can't finish below second now. They can enjoy Wednesday night against PSG. But what a story for this kid. I mean, he's 16.
Incredible.
He looks 16 as well. He looks just like such a young, carefree bloke who must just think, this is going to be great fun, this football career, isn't it? So an absolute pleasure to commentate. And I'm relieved I managed to pick him because he was number 41. They hadn't yet got his name on the back. So there you go. Anything to say? I'm hogging this one a little bit, but it was an amazing night.
There have been some great Friday night matches in Ligue 1 in recent weeks. There was Paris FC beating Monaco 4-1. There was a Lens game when they came from 2-0 down to win 3-2. Was that a Friday night game?
Yeah.
And this was not quite at the same level. But yeah, for a one-off moment, 16-year-old kid who comes on, dad watching on from the stands, and scores the winner with his first touch in professional football to send his team into the Champions League.
Yeah.
Incredible. You feel like surely the magic that has been propelling Lens throughout this campaign is going to sort of dissipate at some point and run out. And yet every single time you watch a Lens home game, something incredible happens. And this was just another example of that.
Yeah, Pierre Sarge has got the Midas touch, hasn't he? Like everything he does turns to gold. Andy, I'm sure you remember Walid, commentating Walid. He was quite a languid midfielder, very technical. He played for Algeria.
Yeah.
What's interesting, I've not dug very deep on this, but Meziane Mesloub, I don't think we said his name, Meziane Mesloub, the 16-year-old boy, he has been playing for Portugal at youth level. So I don't know if that's on his mum's side or grandparents perhaps, but it's going to be interesting to follow what happens there in terms of his international future.
Well, what I was just looking at Walid Mesloub quickly on my phone because I was checking his age. I mean, Walid Mesloub is younger than me, and yet his son has just been playing in Ligue 1, which makes me feel old. So,
and now we all feel old as well. So thanks, Andy. It's great.
My daughter is nearly as old as Max Dowman, and therefore nearly as old as Meziane Mesloub as well.
Yeah.
No pressure. Go out and earn a living. Make your father proud.
In the coal mines.
All right, lads, we're going to talk Ligue 1 to cap this off. Second half of the French football show. Andy and I had a really busy time on Sunday night. What the French League have been doing for the last few years is they've been broadcasting the what they call the multiplex. I think in English we call it the goals show, although we could maybe invent another name. But basically all the games happening at the same time. They're broadcast simultaneously on one feed. Andy and I commentate everything. And we've got a producer in our ears, and he says, which game do you think we should watch? And he also makes judgments, and we jump from game to game. And he'll say, oh, there's been a bad foul or a penalty shout in Lyon. We're going to go there. So we did that.
Yeah,
it's really intense. By the end of it, we're both completely shattered.
Yeah.
Even though in the first half it was quiet, wasn't it? There was only like 5 goals in the 8 games.
But that's, in some respects, that's harder, isn't it? Because then you really have to dig deep and find things to talk about. But actually, when the goals are flying in, you just don't have the time to stop and think. And certainly for the first half of those matches last night, not a lot went on as somebody appears to be getting beaten with a blunt object at the bar behind us.
No, that's the coffee machine. Don't worry, don't worry. But then, sort of midway through the second half, suddenly the goals were flying in, and we get this little buzzer when the goals go in. I remember Rennes scoring 2 quick-fire goals.
Mm-hmm.
They came from behind against
Paris FC,
who had taken the lead. Esteban Laporte got to the 20-goal mark, didn't he? And he looked absolutely delighted. I mean, it was a big goal, so I guess he's celebrating for the team as much as anything. But for him personally, it's a massive sort of milestone. What an achievement. And Andy and I on air, we were talking about the France question, Didier Deschamps naming his squad on Thursday. I think, Tom, you probably feel he's not going to get in. Because
I do feel he's not going to get in, but I have found myself thinking these last few days, what if? Because there is suddenly a vacancy in the front squad with Hugo Ekitike's injury. You look at all the candidates to take his place, and although some of them are Didier Deschamps loyalists, none of them have had particularly impressive seasons for different reasons. Randall Colomwani, Jean-Philippe Mateta, Christopher Nkunku, Florian Thauvin, who has had a very good season, but a different kind of profile. Yeah. A guy like Esteban Laporte, who kind of comes out of nowhere, has an incredible season, scores a ton of goals, and is a pure number 9. It's exactly the kind of player that traditionally national coaches tend to find it hard to overlook when it comes to a big tournament. I've managed to talk myself into thinking that if his name is called out on Thursday, when Deschamps announces his squad, I'm actually not going to be completely surprised, because I think it makes more sense to take him than not to take him. If you have to choose between him and Randall Colomwani, with all the respect I have for Randall Colomwani,
we know what Colomwani can do, and he can be useful, but he's had a hard season, hasn't he? And I think if Laporte is named, I think there'll be this feel-good factor around it, a bit like when Franck Ribéry was called up for the 2006 World Cup. He'd kind of come from almost nowhere. He'd have to fight through the lower leagues, and suddenly exploded in Ligue 1, and it's a little bit similar. And I do think it'd be a popular choice.
I mean, it makes me think a little bit of Toto Schillaci. I mean, going back a little bit, Italia 90, but you get a player who comes out of nowhere, similar kind of profile, a pure number 9, and goes into the tournament on the crest of a wave and sustains that momentum, and it just breathes life into the squad, gives you another opportunity off the bench, gives people who are fans of Ligue 1 a personal story to follow through the tournament. So, I mean, look, he's not going to pick him because Didier Deschamps does not have a romantic cell in his body, but it'd be great if he did.
I reckon we talk title and PSG in a moment. But Andy, as we were talking about Rennes and that victory, let's focus on the European battle and the big game, probably the biggest in that respect last night was Monaco against Lille. Monaco started in 6th, Lille in 4th. And while in sort of midway through the second half, all these goals were flying in, Lille got a goal, which I called completely wrong because I said it's the two fullbacks combining, Romain Perraud crossing and Thomas Meunier scoring. And actually, I did correct myself. It was Gaëtan Perrin who crossed. Looks a bit like Perraud. And Meunier didn't.
Similar name as well.
Yeah. And Meunier didn't get the final touch. It was actually the Monaco defender, Denis Zakaria, an own goal. And that 1-0 win has taken Lille third, hasn't it?
Yeah. So kind of not out of nowhere, but there was a point where it looked like they were not going to be getting into the Champions League. But actually, they'd gone, 13 games without losing? Going back to the end of January, beginning of February. So their form has really picked up again, even if it's not been exactly, breathtaking. They've had a few disappointing draws in that time, but ultimately it's been consistent enough to get them back up to third. They should get into the Champions League now. And that will mean third place means straight into the league phase next season, which for them is a huge thing. It's going to be a lot of money that comes with that. And I guess saving face a little bit as well, because it's all been about their rivals Lens this season. But if they end up matching their achievement and get into the Champions League, then it's great for them. And it really, a feather in the cap of Bruno Genesio, because I'm a little bit surprised to see him nominated for Coach of the Year. But ultimately, leading another team into the Champions League, again, is a fantastic achievement if he can see it over the line. They're not quite there yet, but it does now look like they're going to be probably finishing third, certainly fourth at the very least.
Yeah, Monaco have really faded, haven't they? They've been dropping points. They were thrashed by Paris FC, and this leaves them 7th, which, as it stands, is outside the European places. It could change if Lens win the cup. Is that right?
Yeah, if they finish, whoever finishes 7th will get into the Conference League. If Lens win the cup, that would mean that 6th would be the Europa League. But Monaco need to be aiming higher than the Conference League. I mean, they've been in the Champions League knockout phase, playoff round in the last 2 seasons. It's really important for them to be in the Champions League, isn't it? Because ultimately they don't, how do you attract players to Monaco when you don't have any fans? Well, I guess if you can show them that you're going to be in the Champions League every year, then you can do it. But ultimately, if they don't finish in a European place, they're going to be selling a lot of big names, Akliouche, Balogun, Lamine Camara. I think will all be on their way, and Monaco have to start building again.
Monaco moved down a position because Marseille won. A win that comes as a massive relief for Habib Beye and for everybody at the club. A really difficult week for them, Tom. There was all this talk about the punishment that the players were getting. They had to spend 4 nights at the training ground. And Habib Beye was pretty furious after the game, accusing journalists of telling lies about everything that had gone on, inventing stories and what have you. The game itself was not very pretty. It was a story of 2 penalties, Greenwood scoring for Marseille, and Sofiane Boufal missing for Le Havre. He hit the bar, it came back, was headed goalwards again, and Geronimo Rulli made an incredible save. So Marseille get the win, and Tom, they could actually climb above Rennes because they're 3 points behind Rennes, and they play Rennes on the final day with a better goal difference.
Yeah, and we've known for weeks that fixture was likely to have something riding on it. And on top of that, you've got, the fascinating subplot of Francaise and Habib Beye both going up against the clubs with which they started the season. We now know how decisive it's going to be. A victory for Marseille would enable them to finish 5th, or at least to finish above Rennes, guarantee Europa League qualification. It's been an absolutely awful couple of weeks for all the reasons you mentioned. We had fire extinguisher gate last week when it emerged that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang had been using that particular appliance for a purpose other than the one it was designed for, hence him being dropped for the game against Le Havre. Got the victory, and I thought it was interesting the way that the players celebrated it. Mason Greenwood, as we know, super reliable from the penalty spot, tucks away the penalty, but then all the players celebrated together in a way that felt quite deliberate. And as he was running back into position, Greenwood made a point of just going over and saluting Habib Beye on the touchline. Lots of talk about the fact that Greenwood and Beye don't get on particularly well. We know that Greenwood and Mehdi Benassia, the outgoing sporting director, have a pretty frosty relationship. So at least, viewed from a slight distance, it looked like there was a desire to put on a united front, put the bad headlines of the last few weeks and months behind them, and focus on this crucial game coming up against Rennes on the final day.
Yeah, so Marseille could finish fifth if they can beat Rennes, get into the Europa League. It was for that the story about Mason Greenwood that was in the press. It was a quite widespread report that Abibaye had cut the training session short because he was so angry with Mason Greenwood's lack of commitment, and Abibaye just said it's just not true. It's just a pure invention. Andy, let's finish the European chat with a bit of Lyon chat. We were full of praise for Lyon last week when they beat Rennes 4-2, but they've undone that good work, if you like. They lost 2-1 in Toulouse, having fought hard to get back into the game. Tolisso equalising with a header, and then it was Kamanzi, wasn't it? Prodding home from close range. Not a good goal to concede for Lyon, and it's a costly defeat.
It's costly. Paulo Fonseca's had a habit of this, hasn't he? Of having his team in a very strong position with 1 or 2 games to go and then dropping down. Remember when he was at Lille, I think they were maybe in a Europa League place and dropped out of it, or a Champions League place and missed out on the Champions League. The danger here is that if they've dropped out of the top 3 and now 4th means having to come through 2 qualifying rounds, which would add to the uncertainty around Lyon, because you don't know if you're going to get the Champions League or the Europa League. They need the money. They need the prestige that comes with being in the Champions League, because it's been 6 years since they were there. So that would be, bad for them, because you look at 1 or 2 of their leading players and you think, are they going to be able to keep hold of them if they've not got the money guaranteed from the Champions League? So that's a problem. But having said that, what Paulo Fonseca has done this season is still very, very impressive, with a team that probably wasn't remotely set up to be, in contention to finish in the top 4. So the fact that with a game to go they can still do that is not bad at all.
Tom, tell us about PSG. I noticed they made a lot of changes, didn't they, Luis Enrique, for the home game against Brest, but they got there in the end, got the win.
The classic PSG story of recent weeks. Lots of changes. I think Luis Enrique made 9 changes to the starting 11 from the second leg of the Champions League semi-final against Bayern Munich. Sini Mayulu, notably playing at right back, gave a very good account of himself, hit the crossbar. And PSG, as they always do, were pretty dominant, but really struggled to break Brest down. And then inevitably, over the last half an hour, Luis Enrique throws on the cavalry. Dembélé comes on, Kvaratskhelia comes on, Desiré Doué comes on, and then with less than 10 minutes remaining, the Brest defence is finally breached. Doué cuts in from the left and hings in a really sweetly struck low shot into the bottom right corner. PSG sporting their new home kit for next season. It's kind of like loosely based on the mid-90s kit they had, with a very broad red central stripe and a return to the royal blue rather than the navy blue, which is the traditional home colours. Got the win, and had it not been for that Doué goal, if they had dropped points, it would have meant, a slightly nervy build-up to the game against Lens on Wednesday night, because it would have given them only a 4-point lead over Lens. So had they lost that game, the gap goes down to 1 point, and PSG go into the final game of the season knowing they've got to get a result, just to make sure of things. But as it turned out, the victory gives them a 6-point lead, 2 games to play, huge goal difference advantage. And you sense that they didn't want to celebrate it, but they kind of found themselves celebrating it anyway. Luis Enrique and the coaching staff were all jumping up and down at the end. A 5th consecutive title for PSG, and now they can start turning their thoughts to what's going to happen at the end of the month.
Yeah, but I was also thinking it could get nervy. When it was 0-0 with 10 minutes to go, if they draw that, if Lens had beaten them, and I was thinking, it's going to be Antoine Kombouaré, the coach of Paris FC, who could deny PSG the title and finally get revenge for, what was it, 2011-12? When he was sacked, when they were top of the league, but Ancelotti in, and Ancelotti failed to win the league.
But also, I don't think, would Paris FC have wanted to do that? Because, Antoine Arnaud, the owner of Paris FC, has been on record saying that he's a PSG fan. And actually, where I'm sitting in this cafe, there's a thing that keeps coming up, an advert keeps coming up, which is paid for by the city of Paris, advertising the derby, which is about to be played, and talking about basically making it out to be a friendly rivalry thing. And the idea that Paris FC would deny PSG the title seems unthinkable.
Well, sport
and
is
it's not gonna
sport,
happen.
though, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure they would try and will try hard, but yeah, it's
And
not
we
something we need to.
But we want it to be a rivalry. Like, the fact that Paris FC have already beaten them in the Coupe de France, that could have been the first shot across the bows, but it's by the by.
I think Paris FC are playing it cool at the moment. Like, they don't want to come in and go, oh, we're going to take on the great PSG, because then they'll just get battered. But they want to build up slowly, I think, and maybe we'll have a rivalry. Other games, Metz 0, Lorient 4. So Metz down with their tails between their legs. Angers 1, Strasbourg 1. And we need to talk just a little bit about Auxerre-Nice, because that was a big, big game. Auxerre needed to win to move out of the bottom three and move above their opponents, Nice, on goal difference. They went behind. Sofiane Diop scored early on, but Auxerre came back. Sekou Mara has suddenly remembered how to score goals. He equalised. And then Lassine Sinayoko got the winner. Nice had a massive chance right at the end. Eli very nearly scored. It was cleared off the line. But yeah, Andy, Auxerre are now, like I say, out of the bottom three, and it's Nice who are in the relegation playoff position. It could change, because next weekend Nice are playing Metz at home and Auxerre have to go to Lille.
Yeah, so I think that I'd be surprised if Auxerre win that, and Nice should win their game. So probably Auxerre will end up in the playoff place in that case, but will probably still fancy the chances of winning the playoff, whoever it's against. I just hope for Nice, although they've been awful this season, and I don't think they necessarily deserve in that sense for the season to finish well, but it would be pretty terrible if they got to the French Cup final and had to play in that relegation playoff as well as that, which is what happened last year when Reims got to the cup final, but it was completely ruined for them by the fact they had that relegation playoff either side of it. And then they ended up losing that, getting relegated, and just the whole thing was ruined. And for Nice, it would kind of be the same. Nice could be quite a big club. They've not won a trophy for 25, 30 years. They've also been a top flight, ever present for nearly a quarter of a century. And I think it would just be better for French football if they could just see that over the line and have the cup final to look forward to, and maybe Auxerre can still win the playoff. But it's nice that it's added something.
If the playoff might be against Saint-Etienne, you can't have everything. Like, do you want the big teams up, or do you just want the best teams?
I want the teams who deserve to be in the league to be in the league, but I just think that it would be a shame objectively for Nice if their cup final was ruined by the fact they're in the relegation playoff. But they haven't done much to deserve anything more. I think they've won about 2 games in 4 or 5 months, in the league. So listen, they've been pretty awful, and they might well get what's coming to them.
Andy, thank you very much. Tom, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I want to say
weird doing it in the flesh. Nice weird.
Yeah,
but weird.
It is better. You don't have any delays. You can it's just a bit more human, isn't it? A bit more convivial, as the French would say. And the pavlova was really good. I tried to eat it quietly, not make a fuss. Magnifique. Thank you, dear listeners. Thank you very much for joining us today. Check it out on YouTube if you want to see the pavlova and see this lovely cafe. And do subscribe on the podcast platforms and on YouTube. We'll see you again next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
See ya.